In this video, we're going to go over the subscriber question. Taylor asks, can you provide a short demonstration using loop nodes? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go over the conditional node and the loop node. We'll start with the conditional node. We'll open up this test conditional node example. And here it is. You would get to the conditional node by selecting the little down arrow right here in the toolbar and going to conditional node, and we got the loop node right there. So it gives us a test and a body, and I'll just go ahead and run this in simulation, and that'll explain what's happening. So I'll push run with context. That allows us to run the behavior with the associated structure so that we can access this value property called value. Now when I push the second play button, so the first play button was up here. We click the second play button. We're going to run the simulation. I'll slow down the animation speed just a bit. So we'll start it off. We're going to go in, read self, read the structural feature, and it will go to the end. Now, one thing that I missed is having an initial value. So I will just put in an initial value here of 3. And I will run it again. So it's going to read that 3 value and send it over to the test. The test has the result of false, meaning that it will not go to the body and it ends the activity. The test, if I look into that, it is an opaque behavior with the body as a is greater than 5. So since it was 3, 3 is not greater than 5, therefore it evaluated to false and finished. If I go here and do it again, but instead I'll put 16, which is greater than 5, we'll push run, and the 16 value will go to the test. It will evaluate to true, and then we get that success output. And the success is output to the console right there. Now we'll look into the loop node. So here's an example loop node. I will run this with context so that, again, it gets this value property that you're seeing right here. Has no initial value, so we can just give it initial value of 1. So now when we push play, you'll see it run. So we do the start, and then it goes to the body. It reads the self, which is that the one value. So read structural feature, it's reading the value of that structural feature, and then we're adding it. So then 1 plus 1 equals 2, sending that 2 to the test, and that test is still the same as before, where it's making sure that a is greater than 5. Oh, a is less than 5. And so when this evaluates to false, it will break out and the activity will end. There you're seeing the activity end, and then we print the value to the screen or the console where you're seeing it right there. Now that we've provided an example of the conditional and loop nodes, now I'll show you how I would actually model it. So again, this is where we started from, and we used the actual official conditional node element, but I prefer to not do that because I think it overcomplicates things. So Here is a simpler version that you're seeing here, and you can run this, and we still have the same elements, the read self and the read structural feature. And then we have this decision node, which has our a is greater than 5 right here. And because we started with our 12 value, it evaluated to true. So if I change this to 2, it will evaluate to false, and we'll go the else path. So this is essentially doing the same thing. It's just, to me, a little bit more simple to understand. To go one more layer of simplicity, you can actually remove some of these elements as well, and that's what we'll do here. Just like this. So if I run this guy, run with context, I start with my 12 as my input value, and I push play. You just reset a equals to 12, and then you do your a is greater than 5, print success, else go this way. So to kind of put them side by side, so the read self and the read self are the same. Read structural feature are the same. The test is no longer here. We do that test by using a guard within here. So if I go to the guard within my control flow, that's where my test would be done. And then we have our value specification success right there, and then the print. So it's pretty similar. So now we'll go to the next step, which is from here on the right to the simpler version on the left. We can remove the read self and the read structural feature to just basically say a equals value, because this is an opaque action, which is allowing you access to the value property that you see here. So if I just call out value, that's going to be able to capture that 12 from the value property, and then I reassign it to a variable a, and then I go to my decision node, and then the print success. This also is now an opaque action, which is just has this in the body and language. From before, I was using a call behavior action with the print as the opaque behavior. So I can find that opaque behavior in the containment tree right here. And if I look into the specification, you'll see that I have print input as the body and language of that opaque behavior, which is essentially what I put right here. So this is the simplest version and the one that I would use. Now to jump to from the conditional node to the loop node. Remember, we started with this as our loop node, and I again don't use loop nodes because I find it easier to do it using the decision node. So this would be the same thing. I can run this with context and push play. Remember, this is the one that goes through and adds a number. This is the add. So, and to look at the add in more detail, I go to the specification, go into the specification of that opaque behavior, and it's just a plus 1. So we're just adding 1 to the previous. So now we're at 2, and it will then 2 goes in, 3 comes out, and then 3 is up here. I'm going to change it to something large like 6 so that when the 6 sends to this decision node, it will go left. There we go, because it's false. And then we'll print that number 6 to the screen. That's what you're seeing here. So to have them side by side, they have a lot of the same elements. So we have the read self, the structural feature, the test loop, and the test loop. And if the result is true, then it goes this direction. If it's false, then it goes this direction. So here's our decision node. So instead of having this body right here, we have all this over here on the right. And instead of the print in, we have these 3 elements right here. So pretty similar. So one way to make it simpler is you just use opaque actions for each of your elements here, which will accept lines of code. So instead of having that add opaque behavior, I just have this line of code value equals a plus 1. And then this value is just taking the value property that's called value right here, and it's taking that number 1 as the output here. And then this print input value is just another opaque action. So you can kind of, for these simple ones, completely ignore the opaque behaviors that we had from before. And the opaque behaviors, again, they look like this right here. So this is the add, and then this is the test loop. So the add, you would just go into the specification, and it would have that a plus 1. So I'm replacing the a plus 1 with the value equals a plus 1, which then is going to reassign the value property with this new a plus 1 value. So now I'll run it. So it takes our 1 value, outputs it, and then it adds 1, and we got 2 now, and you can see that it's just going to continue to add 1 until this guard is not true. So when we reach 5, it will go the other direction because the value of 5 is greater than 5 is not true. Therefore, it goes the else direction and then prints the 5 value to the console that you see here. Now to compare the loop node simple to the loop node super simple. So the read self, read structural feature, and test loop are compressed down into this opaque action. And basically we're just reading that value property called values number and then sending it to the decision node. The decision node is right here. So instead of having the guard just say, is it true or false, that's where we put our test loop opaque behavior text. So our test loop text is going to be this a is less than 5. So I've got value is less than 5 because the value is what we're sending to it. And then it evaluates this and decides if we go right or if we go left. And then we've got this value equals a plus 1, which is just assigning the value with a new value of a plus 1. And this opaque action is taking over the read self, the read structural feature, the add opaque behavior, and then this as well. this is the actual resetting of the value property. So that is all done with just that one opaque behavior. And then read self, read structural feature, and the print is all done just by the print. So we made it really simple here. Hope this example helps and maybe provides some insight as to why I don't prefer to use loop nodes or conditional nodes. This sample project is available on our website for you to download. So check the link in the description and leave some comments. I appreciate it. Thank you all.